Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Question by Mark. My guest today is Richard Inman, who is associated with Tommy Robinson's movement. So let's get him in and let's have a chat. Richard, how are you?
Yeah, hello, Mark. How are you, mate? Good to see you.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Good.
Right, cool. Let's get straight into this. I've got lots of questions to ask you. So if you don't mind, Richard, I'd like to ask you, what's your take on the state of the UK right now? Is it heading in the right direction or is it getting worse?
It's getting worse, and it's getting worse by the day. And yeah, I mean, we're in big trouble. I've actually just done a video on this morning. Is England heading for civil war? And it's really based on that groundbreaking podcast that Louise Perry did with an academic, I can't remember the guy's name, from London University last week. And this guy advises governments all over the world. He's looked at the sort of the fertilizer, if you like. I suppose that's not the right word when you talk about civil war, but the ground that civil war grows in. And he highlighted it, and actually he didn't. There was a lot he didn't go into because obviously he's probably worried about not saying too much and getting himself into too much bother with the various different government bodies he works for. But I think we're in big trouble, Mark. And this guy was saying 5 years. If it doesn't happen within 5 years, he'll be absolutely amazed. Now, I've never talked about this openly before because I always my take on it was, okay, we know what the potential is, we know what can go wrong, but we really don't want that to happen. So that's been my sort of take on it. Don't say too much about it because we don't want people getting into those situations. However, if we do end up in that situation, it's going to be extremely ugly, and I don't want to see it. So what we've got to try and do is work out ways to prevent that happening, and I think that's what we've got to strain every sinew to do, and that's what we've really been doing. I mean, we've all been doing this for the past 8 years, trying to find ways to prevent bad things happening.
Absolutely. You mentioned quite a few times on your X feed. You need to close all borders. That's quite repetitive throughout your feed. When you say close all borders, do you think our issues are because of people that are coming in, people that are already here? What's your take?
Both. Let's just be brutally frank. We've got a problem with radical Islam. It's as simple as that. That is probably the main. That and the communists. The communists, the globalists, and radical Islamists are the biggest problem that the United Kingdom faces. People can talk about Russia and they talk about Ukraine. There's no way Russian tanks are going to be going down, the Mall anytime soon. But what we do have is a massive population within the country that a large proportion of that population want to be governed under a completely different legal system. They do not accept our laws. They do not accept our religion. And I don't know what do we do about that? I mean, that's what we're facing. We're facing massive social upset, social cohesion literally falling apart. That's what we're up against at the minute. And
that's yeah, I agree. I'm fully on board with. I align myself with your views and your way of thinking. But then the question is, isn't it? What do we do about it? We've got another 4 years of this ragtag government that we've got in place at the minute with a socialist dictator at the helm. Yeah. I believe they're importing votes. Khan's got the vote in London. So what do we do?
Well, I think that there are things we can do. I mean, obviously, what we're doing with the United Kingdom rallies is fantastic, bringing people together from very, very diverse backgrounds, trying to build a movement. I mean, it's never easy to bring people together and get them all getting on. That's always a problem. But, we do our best. And I think one thing that we've neglected, you've got your Jesus, the Way, the Truth, the Life T-shirt on. One of the things we've neglected, and it only really started last year after the St. George's Day demonstration, is really Christianizing our movement. And I don't mean that we want everybody, we're not trying to get our Sikh friends to become Christians overnight. We know that, we know what the truth is and we believe that truth, right? But we can't enforce that on other people. We've got to give them the truth and then it's between them and God what they do with it. But I think what is really important is getting back to the Christian heritage and the Christian roots of the country. And I always put my hands up. I am absolutely the worst Christian you'll ever meet. I'm rubbish at it. I've failed so many times. the Apostle Paul called himself the worst of sinners. Well, he hadn't met me, So, and I'm not saying that to boast in anything I've done wrong, but I just know my own frame, and I know how weak I am, and I know how stupid I am. But I think that at the end of the day, the spiritual side of it is massively neglected, and the spiritual side of it is actually the most important. Because if all our jihadi friends and Islamist friends became as radical about Christ and Christianity as they are about Islamism and creating havoc and all the negative stuff that they get from the Quran, that itself would turn the world upside down. So I think the church in the UK has failed. We have failed. I failed massively. For years, I kind of, in the movement, I didn't mention Christianity. I didn't live a Christian life. I was very much away from that lifestyle. And recent events and things that have happened to me recently are dragging me kicking and screaming back in that direction, because I think that it is the main building block of our culture and our society. Ayaan Hirsi Ali at the ARC conference, I don't know if you saw the speech, made a magnificent speech where she was talking about how important Christianity is, etc., etc. So all of these things come out of turning away from God and turning away from Christ and turning away from Christianity. And I know because I did it, and I'm 57 now, I'm coming 57 in May. And if God gives me the ability, I want to try and live that life for Christ and try and impact the country in that direction. So I'll be pivoting slightly away from, I'll not be going away from politics, but I'll certainly be pivoting away from, I won't be doing as much street activism. I'll do the Tommy demos. I won't do anything else really, and really focus on how we can re-Christianize the United Kingdom with our feet of clay and with all our failings and all our faults. And look, this isn't about judging people and being all legalistic and saying you've got to live like this, you've got to do that. But I just think we've got to reintroduce the country to the gospel and to the Bible and to faith. So that's one of the things. The other thing, it comes out of it. All of these things come out of it. The other thing is we've got to have an ideology as a movement and as a people, because all our enemies have ideologies. The communists have an ideology. The Islamists have an ideology, but British patriots don't have an ideology. That's why they end up fighting with each other, because they're always arguing about what they believe and what they don't believe. The ethno-nats believe what they believe, and we don't agree with them on that. But the bottom line is everything is rooted in biblical Christianity. Then we're on a firm foundation. So that's why we developed the pledge. I mean, the pledge, and again, you don't have to be a Christian to sign the pledge, but if you look at the pledge and what the content of the pledge is, it's basically based on the Judeo-Christian heritage of our country. And all of those points in the pledge point back to something that we're missing and something we lost. So you've got the spiritual side of it, you've got the ideological side of it. Then obviously those two things come together. You can start building community. And the community does not have to be overtly Christian. You can be an atheist, you can be a Sikh, you can be a Hindu. But if you're buying into those principles in the pledge, buying into our Judeo-Christian heritage and saying, actually, it helped build democracy, it was a good thing, what the Puritans did and what Cromwell did and what all those great movements of Christianity did throughout history from the Reformation onwards, all of those things are a good thing and need to be embraced. And then once you've got your spirituality, once you've got your ideology, once you start building your community, then a political movement should come out of that naturally. Because what we've got at the minute with Reform, with the Tory party, the only party that's really doing anything along these lines, along the cultural lines, is UKIP. And that's the truth of the situation. Nick's a devout Catholic, and he talks about his faith openly. He talks about how where we've gone wrong and how to put it right. But obviously, UKIP is a very, very small party at the minute. So I think in practical terms, well, not practical terms, ideological terms, big picture terms, that's the direction we should be going in. Now, if you talk about how to prevent it physically, well, the first thing you need to do is get a right-wing government elected that will close the borders, start deporting people, get rid of Islamists out of the country, get rid of jihadists, start dealing with the communists and the Antifa types. I'm not talking about being draconian, because I still believe in freedom. I believe these people should have the ability to talk. But if you're planning on overthrowing our government and imposing either communism or Sharia law, not on my watch. We've got to push back against that. And the only way we can push back is if we are in power and we control the government. Because otherwise, what we've got at the minute is a communist stroke Islamist government that are imposing their will on the majority of people, whereas what we should have is the majority of people imposing our will on the communists and the Islamists and basically putting them back in their box, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it makes sense. With regards to Nick Tenconi, I interviewed him 2 weeks ago actually, and I'm very impressed with everything that he says. But the fact remains that UKIP are not going to be in a position to overthrow Labour in 4 years' time.
And we know that. I mean, I'm on the NEC of UKIP, and we're not. What we can hopefully do is drag reform kicking and screaming to the right and onto our way of thinking. I think there's massive problems with reform. Zia Yusuf seems to be a totalitarian tyrant. He's kicking people out of the party left, right, and centre, apparently, allegedly. Farage is very weak on all these issues, very weak on culture, very weak on Islamism. Doesn't really seem to be that bothered about stopping the net zero madness either. There's a lot of problems, and even their net zero policy on they have it, called net zero migration. That's one in, one out. So we lose Jeremy, the accountant, who says, I'm sick of paying all these taxes in England, I'm going to move to Portugal or America. And we get Abdul and his 15 kids from Afghanistan. And it's, that's the trade, and it's not a good swap. So the other thing that I think, if we did get a right-wing government, that we absolutely need to do is start a home guard. And I mean, ex-army guys, ex-police, enthusiastic patriots, as long as they're all good character and they're not going to, run around and do crazy stuff. We start a home guard in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. I did this in the video I just put out about my take on it, if there'll be a civil war. We had the Ulster Defence Regiment, which was a regiment of the British Army, and there was thousands of people, part-time and full-time, in the Ulster Defence Regiment, and then subsequently the Royal Irish Regiment. We had the RUC Reserve, and all these guys were men at arms. And of course, Northern Ireland was a very, very small place with a very small contained population that was actually should have been fairly easy to contain the trouble in Northern Ireland. Those troubles went on until, well, about 10 years ago. There was still stuff bubbling under the surface, and even now there's still stuff bubbles. So the truth of the matter is, once that genie's got out of the bottle, it's very difficult to put it back in. So all of these things need to be thought about now at government level. And I don't think anyone's even talking about it. And, we must say we've got a very good security services. MI5 seem to do a good job, and the police seem to do, anti-terrorists seem to do a good job at getting a grip of terrorism. But it doesn't take much to spark that fire that would burn our country to the ground. And a civil war is in absolutely nobody's interest. Anybody, I saw some of the comments on my video. Oh yeah, about time we got this civil war going. Well, good luck on that one. When somebody comes into your house with a machete and kills your wife and kids, and they hit you in the face with a baseball bat, like that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about anything high tech, because nobody in this country. The other thing is, the only people who've got guns in this country are criminals and the police, and that's it. So I know this is very negative and very doomsday, but I think we've got to talk about these things honestly and openly and say, is there a potential for this? And I think when we look at what happened last September and how that could have got out of hand, and incidentally, Tommy Robinson, myself, Paul Thorpe, I know guys in the football, the football fans, everybody with any influence was appealing for calm up and down the country to make sure that those riots didn't go the way that they could have gone. And we've always been like that. I mean, despite it's been slandered ever since we've been doing this. Since I've been doing this in 2017, we've always been damping things down and trying to calm things down, not doing what we've been accused of doing, which is, sort of stoking things up. We're just telling the truth. And of course, it doesn't suit the left, the state, the establishment, and the Islamists for us to highlight exactly what's been going on.
Absolutely. I was chucked in prison last year because of these riots. I went not guilty. Just me and one other. So, and we both won our cases, but all the time through in the court, they're trying to build a picture of me of being this racist far right associated with Tommy Robinson, when that just wasn't the case. I was simply just talking about observations. Let me just move on to this question, Richard, if you don't mind. How do you feel about Islam becoming more visible in UK politics? I put out a tweet a couple of days ago about this, and I basically said we shouldn't have any Muslim MPs in positions of power over us, because the flip side of that is, would you ever see a Christian in Saudi Arabia in a position of power? And I believe the answer is going to be no. So what do you think about the growing presence of Islam in political discussions in changing the UK's identity for the worst?
Well, I think they've been doing it covertly for years. In fact, I know they've been doing it covertly for years. They've infiltrated every single political party. Incidentally, I think they've infiltrated Reform as well. That's the biggest worry I've got. You know, the Tories, we know they're infiltrated. We know the Labour Party's been infiltrated, Lib Dems, Green Party. So all of those parties are compromised by Islamists and by Islamist groups. The civil the civil service is compromised. If they could get into the military in a big way, they would. So, you know, Islamists are infiltrating every area and every strata of society. Obviously, there's a lot of very wealthy Islamists who sort of keep the powder dry. They don't say too much, but they have a lot of influence in politics. They have a lot of influence in business and finance. So in a way, the Islamist MPs showing their hand is actually quite good, because at least people are seeing them, right? Whereas if you've got an Islamist MP in the Labour Party or in the Conservative Party, and he holds exactly the same views, but he's holding them in a lot more covert way, it's far more dangerous. I remember years ago, I did a speech with Anne-Marie Waters, and it was way back in 2017. And I said, look, I says, who's the most dangerous Muslim in the UK? I said, is it Anjam Chowdhury or is it Majid Nawaz? And of course, everybody said, oh, Anjam Chowdhury. Chowdhury's the most dangerous Muslim in the UK. I said, no, he's not. I said, Majid Nawaz is far more dangerous than Anjam Chowdhury. And actually, what I have said has been proved true, because now Majid Nawaz has got a beard down to there. He's shaving his top lip, and he's not really hiding too much what he believes anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas for several years, he was very, very good at hiding his hand. I don't know whether he's had a reconversion or whatever, but he seems to be a lot more radical than he was. His rhetoric on the Israel conflict is hardening. Some of the stuff he said about Syria I found very, very disturbing. So I think what's happening is they're showing their hands, and I think that in a way that's a good thing, because at least we know who they are and where they're coming from and what they believe, so we can then counter that with truth, because obviously truth always shines a light in the darkest of places. So yeah, that's my take on it. I don't think we should ban people from standing. We just need to expose them. And if people are committing offences, and if people are inciting insurrection, then of course that needs to be dealt with by the law. And are there enough laws there to deal with that? Well, there probably are, but they just won't be implemented, because the reality is there is a two-tier legal system. That's another story.
How do you think Keir Starmer's visit with Donald Trump is going to go today?
Oh, I just hope Donald slaps him.
That's what I put the same tweet out. I said, Donald's going to put him over his knee. He's going to spank him, and he's going to send him over the tail between his legs.
You know, you silly little child. You know, what are you doing? You're way out your depth. You know, just. You know, of course, unfortunately, Trump's got a bit of a bromance going with Farage, but you know, it'd be nice to hand the keys over to Reform. You know, but we know it's not going to happen. I mean, the reality is, it'll all. I don't know. I don't think Trump will take any of his nonsense. I mean, if Keir Starmer gets a bit out of hand, you know, he's going to get slapped down, and you know, Trump is just not messing about. He's taking everyone apart at the minute, and
he realizes that he has to do that. And you look at what's going on in Germany. They had an opportunity.
They dropped the ball.
Week, you know,
they dropped the ball. And Mark, that's what worries me about the UK. I'm very worried that we're going to end up with another left-wing government. Unless Farage needs to get his act. Farage needs to get a grip of himself or go, because he is not. What? Look, Elon read it. Elon said he ain't the man for the job, and he's not. I think a Ben Habib, a Rupert Lowe. I don't think Nick Tenconi's quite ready, but I mean. Certainly Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib would be the men I would want leading the country, or Suella even. I mean, Suella Braverman, if she's free from those shackles. But I'm very concerned about what's happening on the right with Reform, because they're not. Are they going to get a majority? Well, I mean, they're around 30% in the polls, but listen, they haven't even been scrutinised yet. They've no policies as far as I can see. They have no depth of policy and no depth of thought. They're 100 miles wide and an inch deep. You know, so that's what worries me. That's what really worries me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hide the fact that I'm a Reform member, Reform voter, and I will be when it comes round again. I'm just of the opinion that there's only really one party in any kind of position to do this. Conservatives are done for at least 12 years, I think, and they've got the wrong woman in charge. They should have gone with what's the guy's name? Jenrick. They should have gone with Jenrick. So they're missing an opportunity. So the only opportunity we have is with reform. Now, that's going to be in 4 years' time. So what do we do in this 4 years? Because it's only going to get worse. We're going to open borders and people can come in. Have you seen my council tax strike movement that I've started?
No.
So basically, at the beginning of April, we are going to be withholding our tax payments en masse, sending emails to our councils, sending and then making phone calls. It's growing and growing and growing. We've been on GB News with it. Do you think something like that could work? I mean, we seem to march and march and march, and I don't think it really affects the government.
I would agree. I mean, I think marches are good, but you can't march every weekend. I mean, you probably 2 or 3 marches a year is enough, and that's what I mean. Last year was unusual because we did St. George's Day, we did 1st of June, we did July, and then we did October when Tommy got to prison. So we did 4 big marches last year. And I mean, obviously St. George's Day was the sort of smallest one out of there. But I think, I mean, that we do have something planned for when Tommy gets out. I'm not going to say any more about that. There's something massive planned for when Tommy gets out, which should be absolutely fantastic. I think, yes, we do need to. We need to find a way of putting the government behind the 8 ball without putting ourselves in a position where we all get locked up unnecessarily. Because obviously you've already tasted that. So obviously we avoid violence. We're against violence. We don't want a civil war situation. We don't want a conflict on the street situation. We want the opposite of that. So it has to be something political. I think a council tax strike could be very interesting because, if everybody did it, the problem is with these sort of things, everybody's got to do it or it's not effective. Because if it's just a few people, you can get picked off. Obviously, if you're fronting it, you need to be careful that everything you say is totally legal and you're not inciting people.
We have had experts in. Basically, there's a probate thing that you can do. So you can go to your local council and you can stress to them that you feel that our money is going to central government and funding wars. And then you've got a lot of legalities then behind you for withholding. And what we're telling people is we're not paying our council tax. We're taking the payment, we're putting it into a separate account, and we will pay it once we're listen to it. And I believe it could work because ultimately what's going to make a difference is hitting them in the pocket. So we'll see. It's all planned for April the 7th. I'm speaking to the farmers as well. So I'm hoping that we can do a joint thing there. Right, I've got loads of questions, so I'll carry on. So your faith is obviously important to you. That's quite prevalent throughout your feed on X. So has your faith ever been challenged by being associated with Tommy Robinson and controversies attributed to him?
Not by being associated with Tommy Robinson. I'll be honest with you. When I first started doing this, I made a massive error. And I said, okay, these guys aren't Christian guys. They're not going to get this. And I kind of been a bit lukewarm, if you like, anyway, in my faith, So this was kind of 2017-ish. Listen, I've known Tommy since 2016, 17, and Tommy actually is. Tommy's got a very interesting mind, and he's not closed to the faith whatsoever. He's very, he's a very open book, and he's got a lot of very, very good Christian principles. Like he has the ability to forgive people who do the most appalling things to him, and he just forgives them and moves on. He really does it. So there's never been anything to do with Tommy challenging my faith. What challenged my faith was my own stupidity, really. Because what I did was, I'm going to put that to one side because I can't really talk about it. These guys, are not interested in religion. They're interested in politics and how to solve things that way. And it was a big error because I did, for want of a better term, backslide and put my faith on a shelf for probably 5 or 6 years, if I'm honest, and that was a massive mistake, and I paid a heavy price for that, and I shouldn't have done it. It was wrong, and so from that point of view, nothing to do with Tommy, more to do with the movement and the way I was interacting with the movement. If I'd just been very upfront, all right, people might not have liked it, but I wouldn't have caused myself as many problems. So.
The reason I asked that question, Richard, is because I'm very much right wing, and I'm very outspoken on X. And the first thing all the left bedwetters hit me with is, you've got Jesus is King on your profile. You're no Christian. You've probably never gone to church, and all this kind. That's the first thing that they say, and I've got fed up of answering it, to be honest. Yeah,
I mean, the reality is what we're doing is trying to protect our Christian culture from it.
Exactly.
And when I first got involved in this, probably 2014, 15. I wasn't on the streets, but I was, you know, probably even before that, actually. I mean, I've been, you know, I've been dealing with this since 1984 with the Islam issue, way before I was a Christian. So, you know, I've known all about it since the 80s. And when I was in the military, you know, in Northern Ireland, me and the guys looked at what was happening, went, like, this is exactly what's happening in our inner cities. You know, the Northern Ireland thing, the sectarianism, the split between two different groups, at least two different groups, obviously in England. And we went, okay, this is going to happen in 20 years in England. You know, what was happening in Northern Ireland, and it was exactly 20 years. It was like 2005 when the first, you know, successful, if you call it that, the first mass casualty suicide bombing took place. So in terms of faith, when I became a Christian in about 96, I realized, and I put this on Twitter all the time, that Islam is an anti-Christian, anti-Christ religion. And that's not defaming Muslims. That is just a statement of facts, because the scriptures, the Bible is very clear. Who is he that is antichrist but he that denieth the Father and the Son? So in other words, a denial of the deity of Christ, a denial of the sonship of Jesus Christ is antichrist according to the Bible. And what is the mantra of Islam? Allah is one, he has no son. So, you know, it is a completely antichrist religion. If people don't like that, tough. It's just a fact. And so from a Christian point of view, a Christian actually cannot be neutral on this. They cannot pander to the mass immigration, loony, bring everybody into the country brigade, especially when they're bringing masses of Islamists and people who've been involved in conflicts throughout the Muslim world, young fighting age Muslim men. That's not compassion. It's a recipe for national suicide. And anybody that claims to be a Christian and signs off on that needs to go and read the Bible. They need to go and read the Old Testament. They need to go and read, you know, it is nonsensical, and it's absolutely, you know, it's absolutely maddening when people, and the people that probably accuse you of not being a Christian have probably never been to church or read the Bible themselves, especially the lefties. You know?
Absolutely.
So, look, I know for a fact, like, despite me being a failed human being, I know for a fact that what I believe is true, and I know for a fact that we're in a battle against good and evil, and we're on the right side. I know that. I don't even need to, you know.
I'm a big believer in masculine Christianity.
Yeah.
And that's basically guys like myself, guys like you, that are prepared to put their head up above the parapet and say what needs to be said based on our Christian morals. So I'm 100% with you with that. Okay,
and I think the thing, you know, if I give any advice, Mark, because obviously you're starting on this journey, I took my eyes off Christ and it cost me. Don't do that.
Oh no,
you know, and it's you know, yeah, it cost me a great deal. So you know, you keep your eyes on Christ, you'll be fine. You know, it's going to be a battle, because you're jumping straight into a massive spiritual battle. I'd never felt spiritual pressure like it in my life. You know, and you know, that's including, you know, living in Northern Ireland for however many years, nearly 40 years now. You know,
Christians need to realise that the battle's already won, and we're just playing that out in real
terms. It is already won, but we still got to take part in the battle. You know,
exactly that. Let's go. I was at the last rally in London, and I was quite near to you when you was having a back and forth with a police officer, with a policeman. Can you tell us what happened there? Because that video did go out of you two having a bit of.
Yeah, I mean, he was the lead cop there. I don't know what chief superintendent, whatever rank he was. He was a senior police officer, and he was really trying to. I'll be honest with you. I think he was, whether through stupidity or whether through malevolence, he was trying to provoke a riot. Because that area, what was agreed between me and the police was, and I've got all the recordings. So I record every time I talk to the police. You know, and I tell them I'm recording, so I'm not doing anything covert. I just say, look, guys, I'm going to record this. I've got a recording. What was agreed with the police when we reached a critical mass? In other words, when Sandal Street reached a point where we couldn't get any more people down it for whatever reason, we said what we'll do is we'll then be on the road, and the road will have to close. Right now, we weren't even at that point. We were at the point where Sandal Street was full, but we had some guys, I think the West Ham lads, on the other side of the road, outside Waterloo Station, just waiting to join the march when it started. And this cop came up to me. It wasn't the one that you saw me talking to. He says, Richard, he says, they're going to start nicking those guys over there. Well, what for? He says, because you're breaking conditions. I'm like, no, we're not breaking conditions at all. So obviously I went up to the officer, in charge, and I said, look, what are you doing? This is not what was agreed. We agreed that once we reached a critical mass, we would go out onto the road, and then we would form upon the road, and that's it. You'd have to put the road closures in. I says, so you're talking about nicking people for standing on a pavement because they can't get across the road because the pavement on the other side of the road is full. I can't remember the conversation, but and I've had problems with that guy before. So I mean, in September we're going to have to look at whether we need to try and get a different lead from the police side, because it's going to be extremely difficult to trust that guy after what he did, because he was ready to start arresting people, and there would have been a riot because people would have seen that, they would have spilt onto the street, and it would have been absolute carnage.
I agree. One arrest would have set it off, because
and I think to be fair, I had to do that. I had to get very assertive with him, because otherwise I think he would have just gone and started messing people about, and I think it worked. I mean, we managed to calm the situation down, and the disaster was averted. So yeah, I mean, it was, and I'm glad it was caught on footage, because I mean, I think the thing I said to him, he said, oh, we've got a helicopter film. I said, well, all these people are here are filming it. It's going all over the world, and you're going to lose your job if it goes wrong. It's your call,
Yeah, absolutely. I thought you handled it very well. I want to talk about Tommy for a second. Obviously, he's in prison at the minute, been in there a long time, but there's been mixed messages about his state of mind and about his health. A couple of weeks ago, there was a report that he was gaunt, not eating at all, and he was his mind was not in a good place. But then a few days ago, we see the video of, I don't know who they were, but 3 people that had been in to see him, visit him, saying how well he was doing. He's lost a little bit of weight, but he's got a fire in his belly. He's doing really well. What's your view on how he's coping in there as we are today?
Yeah, I mean, because obviously I'm not allowed to visit him anymore. I don't have phone contact with him. It's just the odd email, and I've had quite loads went on this last month, so I haven't been able to email as much as I would. Last email I got, he was very buoyant about the demo. Really excited about it. He seems to be okay. I mean, he's over halfway now. Right, he's over halfway. He is safe. He's not in danger. He's not in danger of being poisoned. He's not in danger of being attacked by jihadists, and that's why he's in solitary. Mentally, I suppose it's like anything. Human beings are incredibly resilient, and in terms of him being in solitary, it's not good, and it's not what we want, and we want it to be out of that. But do I think Tommy's tough enough to survive it and come out fairly unscathed? Yes, I do. But that doesn't mean he should be still in there with that cruel and unusual punishment which solitary confinement is. There are times, I must admit, when I think it would actually be quite nice to be on your own for a little while, but not 9 months, and not locked behind a door. But so I think from Tommy's point of view, he's a tough cookie, and he's not going to let this break him. But from a humanitarian point of view, he should not be in that position. He should not be in solitary confinement. He should be, really and truthfully, he should be home on attack. He should be at his house on attack.
Solitary is a tough gig. I've worked as a prison officer, and I've worked in segregation.
Yeah,
they do have it rough, and you can see just how much it affects certain people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm fully behind the fact that he'll probably come out and it will just have a fire in his belly. It's doing exactly the same as what happened to me. I got put in prison. I come out and now I'm roaring and I want to do shit to the government. Do you know what I mean? Right. So what's your response to people that say Tommy's activism, which you are a part of, stirs up more division than solutions?
It's nonsense. I mean, the whole point of what we've been doing with the United Kingdom rallies is bringing people together from various different backgrounds. One of the guys that said, when my mother died recently, one of the guys that showed the most care for me was a Muslim guy from Wales, Shohab, he's absolutely, really smashing it by saying, look, I'm a Muslim, but I don't believe in what all these guys believe, and he's putting himself in real danger. And he was one of the most kindest people to me when my mum died. So we're not about dividing people. The division's coming from the left and the division's coming from the Islamists. We're trying to bring people together. And we've always said, if you're a Muslim and you believe what we believe, and you obviously they're not going to believe what we believe about the Bible and all that sort of stuff, but if they believe that the best course of action is having a Christian orientated, free democratic society where people can, within boundaries, do what they want and say what they want, then they're welcome to come to our rallies. And we had loads of Muslims who come to our rallies. We have loads of ex-Muslims. We've loads of ex-Muslims involved in the movement. We always have had. And, anyone's welcome to come to our rallies. Whereas I don't think we'd be too welcome if we turned up at a Hamas hate march.
Absolutely,
I think we get a very, very negative reception. So no, it's nonsense. We're not being divisive at all. We're trying to bring people together. You can't keep everybody happy. There'll always be a little falling outs, a little nils. That's just happened. That's just part of life. But you just get on with it and keep going.
Thank you very much for answering that. The reason I'm starting on that thing, when I said that I was going to be interviewing you, I had quite a lot of DMs coming in my way.
Yeah.
Some showing a lot of love for you. A lot of people wanted to know how Tommy's getting on. So obviously I've asked that question. But then there was people that wanted to ask probably difficult questions that they wanted me to ask. So I am going to ask them, but I don't want you to think this is coming from a bad place.
No.
This is just what my followers want to know.
Yeah.
So do you believe that, I don't know how involved you are with Tommy's online account, if at all, but do you believe it's being run properly? Because there's been a lot of rumours of a lot of infighting. My name's been mentioned in infighting with media passes and things because of who I interviewed or have interviewed in the past. So how do you feel it's being run? Do you, the infighting, is that all nonsense?
Yeah, I mean, look, any movement, there's always going to be internal tensions, right? I mean, you talk about a movement with hundreds of thousands of people in it. So there's always going to be, internal tensions and a bit of aggro from time to time. But, all of us have known each other for a very, very long time. And we, do we all get on all the time? No. But, we work together. We do a good job at what we do. No family, no organization, no group ever has complete, calm and tranquility. You get that in heaven, maybe, but churches don't get it. Everywhere you go, there's niggles, there's things happen. Now, you can over egg this and make it into a drama, or you can say, well, look, there's just some people that get on and some people that don't get on, and that's it. And it's not, and I think, listen, there's, I'm not going to go into the mechanics of how Tommy's Twitter feed works or who does it and who doesn't do it, but I've nothing. It's not. I don't do it. I never have any input into what goes out on Tommy's Twitter.
It's Carla Rogers, isn't it? Carla Rogers and Tony that run the account.
No.
Is it not?
No.
Okay.
No. And I'm not going to comment on who runs the account, because that's that's internal. The internal machinations of what goes on in.
They put a tweet out. I think it was 3 days ago now. Basically, Brother Wendell was on Speaker's Corner.
Yeah.
And Tommy Robinson's team put a tweet out saying that Jesus was black. Jesus was a black man. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that post, but I'd love to get your reaction to it.
No, I haven't seen that, and so I can't comment because I haven't seen it. So I don't, I don't know what the context was. I don't know what was being said. I don't know anything about it. I mean, it's like anything. We're all busy. I don't look at every single tweet that goes on Tommy's account. No, even when Tommy was out, I didn't look at every single tweet that went on his account. And he doesn't look at every single tweet I put out either. So. Honestly, I don't know what that's about at all.
Okay. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
You've got prominent figures at the head of your movement, and I want to talk about a person individually, because you've got Liam Tufts, you've got Paul Thorpe. Now, Paul Thorpe stayed in my hotel when the last March, and I made every effort to go and shake his hand, and he didn't have a lot of time for me at all. I found him quite abrasive, if I'm honest. And I'm hearing that even within your movement, that people feel the same. Now, somebody came to me and said that they went to Paul Thorpe with a problem, with an issue that they would like him to highlight for everybody else because he had a platform. Because she didn't want to go on screen, he basically told her to fuck off.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm sick to death of people contacting me, saying to me, Paul, I've got a great story. I know about this, I know about that. Guess what happened at my kid's school? Guess what happened at work? guess what I found out? And I say to them, great, come and tell the story. And they go, oh no, I can't do that. No, it's okay to expect me to tell the story for them and for me to get into trouble. It's okay for them to come at me and tell me what to say, but they won't say it themselves. Nation of bloody cowards half the time.
Fuck off. And
I don't believe that. I absolutely do not believe that Paul will have said that, because he's not a rude man. You know, Paul is one of the nicest people in our movement, without a shadow of a doubt. He's an absolute gentleman. You know, he's one of those people that when you actually get to, I mean, you know, when you get to know him, I got to know him pretty much straight away as soon as, you know, when I had the sort of first meeting with him, when we started doing the live streams together, I just warmed to him. He's a really great guy, and I don't believe for a minute he told anyone to F off. I would almost say that's slander at whoever's actually said that. I would say, okay, well, you know, challenge him on that, because I just don't believe it. I don't believe for a minute that he would tell a woman to F off. I just don't believe it. I mean, and the other thing you got to understand is, right, same with Tommy and same with everybody else, the amount of people that come to all of us with this idea and that idea and this and that, you know, and I have a much smaller account than Paul and a fraction of what Tommy's got, but the amount of people that would just steal your time. And if I'm at the stage now where I'm going, do you know what? My phone's always on silent. I don't answer any calls. I see who's phoning me first. I'm you know, I've deleted loads of chats off WhatsApp, because for the very simple reason, you get swamped, and a lot of it is negativity. A lot of it is people, you know, massaging their own egos, you know. And at the end of the day, this isn't about any one individual or any one micro cause. It's about saving the country. So if Paul's been short with someone, I'd be very surprised, because he's not like that. Now I can be very short with people, and you know, it is one of my failings. I can be, you know, quite rude sometimes, but that will only happen because you're in a situation where you don't have time to.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, my account's in a building, and I have people coming to me all the time for different things, and I try to do my best to.
And honestly, some of the stuff that people come to you with, I mean, you know, is verging on the ridiculous, right? So you've got to filter stuff out. You've got to find out the decent people, you know, and sometimes you get it wrong. Believe you me, at there's times I thought people were decent and they've turned out to be absolute rotters. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's like you've got to be very careful, and especially when you are trying to do something on a strategic level, to not get stuck in tactics and not get stuck in silly little dramas that shouldn't even be happening, and you know, that cause all sorts of, you know, unforeseen consequences. So with Paul, he may well, you know, he's probably just protecting himself, because he's like, I mean, I know what his inbox is like, and it you know, when he first started doing it, he'd said he'd be out for a dinner with his wife, and his phone would be going, and you know, there'd be people WhatsApp him and people email him. It was just, you know, he said it was just, and that's what the movement's like. And the more prominent you are in it, the more, you know, the more you're going to get that sort of stuff. So I think I'd be very surprised if Paul had said anything like that.
Okay. If Paul watches this, then please get in touch, and I'll tell you, you know, where that's come from, and etc. You know, I'm not going to hide that from you. I've been told by a couple of different people about Paul Thorpe. The reason I ask is because of the movement, and you know, we're trying to unite rather than divide. Is the reason.
Paul's one of the most uniting figures I've ever come across in my life. It's just, if I thought he was like that, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be doing live streams with him. I just wouldn't, because I can't be bothered with, you know, if somebody's rude or unpleasant, I really don't want to have anything to do with them, to be brutally honest with you. And even more so now than ever before, because I think things are so urgent. I can't, if someone's causing problems, they've just got to be, you know, sort of shunned almost, and put, you know, and you've got to walk away and leave them to it, because you know, you can't be in that position where you've got negative people around you. And Paul is completely the opposite to what you've just described. So again, you know.
Yeah, obviously, you know Paul Thorpe better than I do. I just know I had my experience with Paul Thorpe, and then I'm saying, because of this interview, then people have said, look, what about this? These are people in their movement, and that they're rude, etc., etc. That's why I talked to you about the harmony of the people that are running his account. Because I do know that there has been a lot of heated discussions in Tommy's absence. That's the question I'm trying to get at is, will Tommy be happy the way things have been run when he gets out? And I'm not so sure he will be. So that's why these questions are asked.
I mean, at the end of the day, he's you know, the Twitter side of things is, I mean, look, there's the odd tweet goes out. There's, you know, that aren't perfect, but I mean, you know, none of us are perfect. So I mean, you know, it's like, to me, I think things have gone remarkably well. I mean, last time he was incarcerated, it was just chaos and mayhem, not from the team, but just there was stuff happening on the streets. There was, you know, and I think we've managed to contain all that. We haven't had any people going on the streets causing problems, because Tommy doesn't want that. He doesn't want, you know, any aggro on the streets. And I think on the whole, the demos we've done have been a great way of diffusing that. They've been a great atmosphere. And you know, the team that's been criticised here is the team that organised these demos, you know, for the past year. So I think, again, you know, I know everybody on the team. Everybody is extremely good at what they do. You know, so I just think, unless you're actually walking in somebody's shoes, you can't really understand the pressures. And I know the pressures that Tommy's team are under as well. Like, I mean, talking at the top level of the team, I know the pressures that those guys are under. And the reality is, you would not want that job for all the money in the world, you know, because it is such a difficult job to do. And, you know, if mistakes are made from time to time, so what? You know, I've made loads of mistakes in the movement, gazillions of mistakes that people could write me off for and say, oh, look, he's just, you know, he doesn't know what he's doing. And that's how you learn. You know, you make your mistakes, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and on you go. And I can't think of anything that's been radically horrendous that's, you know, that would warrant Tommy coming out and saying, oh, you know, you guys didn't do a good job when he was inside, because I think everyone has done, on the whole, has done a very good job.
Okay. Another difficult question I want to ask you is, you're obviously the organizer of, people believe that you're the main man. Now, obviously, you can tell me whether you are or not. That you know, spearheads.
No, I'm not the main man.
Okay.
I mean, look. You know, I'm involved with organising the demos. You know, routes and planning and that sort of thing. You know, I do a bit of comparing, but there's a team. It's not. There's no one individual that you can say is doing everything, because it's just not the way it works. There's a team. And again, I'm not going to go into the mechanics of the team, because obviously that's what Hope and Hate would love us to do. But there is a team, and it's a team. There's a team there that's been around Tommy for a long time, and it's a joint effort. So it's not like just one person doing everything. There's a lot of other people involved.
Okay, that's fine. Somebody came to me and they're basically saying that the movement isn't all that it seems. They've basically said to me that there was a tweet sent out and an email with the costings of the last event, and what things are going to cost, etc., and asking for donations, which is fine. Yeah, if people want to donate, they'll donate. However, one of the items that was on the itinerary was this. I think it was a board or some kind of hoarding or something, and it was quoted at £1,000 on the itinerary from your side of things. This person has gone and looked up the same item to see how much it actually costs, and the same item from the same place cost £250.
Well, let me just cut you off there, Mark. Right, because one, you know, these people that are sort of doing this, running around trying to discredit. Because look, when people are trying to discredit the team, they're discrediting Tommy or trying to discredit Tommy, right? And that, you know, obviously anonymously, because they haven't got the balls to come on and say things to me publicly. So if people are going to anonymously try and discredit what Tommy's team are doing, now again, I'm not involved in booking any of the AV stuff. But I'll tell you what about the AV stuff. Nobody will work for Tommy. It is impossible to get anybody to do the work for Tommy, and we have to pay a premium, because the guy that does it has to charge a premium, because he has to pay people extra to come in and do it. You know, when we did, well, I'm not going to go, in fact, I'm not even going to go into it, because I'm not going to go into too much of what happens. But the reality is, we have to pay a lot of money for something that would cost a lot less if it wasn't Tommy Robinson. And the guy that we've been working with, We've worked with him for, and I'm not going to say who he is or where he's from. We've worked with him for a long time. He is a businessman. He's not doing it because he particularly loves us one way or the other, but he is willing to do the work, and he charges a premium for doing the work. So again, these little whispering campaigns, do you know what, Mark? It's gossipy. It's embarrassing. It's completely without foundation. And, you know, I've done this for a long, long time. And, you know, if the money's going anywhere that it's not going where we say it is, then I'd love to know where it's going, because it's not going in my pocket. It's not going in the other people in the team's pocket. And people that are giving of their time freely and are literally giving sacrificially and have done for years and have sacrificed their reputations, their employment, you know, and I'm talking about people from the security team, people on the stewards, right the way through. People have paid a high price for association with Tommy. And these little whispering campaigns by no marks and nobodies, they really need to, if they don't want to be involved in what Tommy does, just go away and set your own movement up, do your own thing. But don't be, you know, digging Tommy's team out when what they're trying to do is protect Tommy and keep Tommy safe and keep his name alive while he's in prison, and do everything they can to basically get him out of prison and look after him, because that's what Tommy's team's involved in. Tommy's team do a lot of work. And like I say, I'm not involved in that. What I do is I organise the demonstrations, the routes, the policing, and do a bit of comparing, right? Everyone has their own jobs and their own missions, but to throw accusations like that about, again, anonymously, you know, these people won't put their head above the parapet. They won't say who they are, and there's a lot of people who probably think they're more important than they are, and think they've got more influence than they genuinely have. And if they want to start up their own movement, they can go and do it, but it'll not be anywhere near as successful as Tommy, because there's only one Tommy Robinson. There's nobody like Tommy, you know. And I think attacks on him, if you're attacking the team, you're attacking Tommy. It's simple as that. And it actually annoys me, and I think it's especially if it's coming from people that are meant to be on our side. And we've had this for years. We've had people attack Tommy for years, and he just brushes it off and he just laughs it off. But you've asked the questions. I'm just giving you, you know, completely straight answer.
Absolutely. Listen, and I hope you understand that, you know, I'm trying to do things from both sides of things. So
no, totally get it. I'm not blaming you, Mark. It's just, you know, it's when people make specific allegations without knowing all the facts, it's just embarrassing. You know,
okay, you've answered the question, which is so I thank you for that. Listen, let's wrap this up. What's next? Is it this September thing that
there's going to be something in September, maybe August, maybe September. There's going to be something back end of the year, back end of the summer, and it's going to be massive. It's going to be the biggest event that's ever been seen, I think, in patriotic history, if you like, in terms of the movement. It's going to be absolutely huge. Tommy will be out. He'll have a fire in his belly. There's going to be a lot of very, very interesting speakers from around the world there. It is going to be massive, and it's going to be one not to miss. You know, I mean, it really is. But again, I don't know the exact dates. It's August, September, who knows? And it's just keep those 2 months free. Keep those 2 months free.
Thanks for joining me today, Richard. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for asking my questions. And for now, I'll see you soon.
Okay, take it easy, Mark. See you soon, mate. Bye-bye.